Make sure it's recording. Tis indeed. All
Yay.
right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of After Class Convos. I am Sarah E. Braswell, a biology professor at South Georgia State College, and for the past decade, and I just left, former STEM Center coordinator here at the Waycross campus. So if you've ever stayed after class to ask a question, talk about grad school, discuss life after college, or simply continue a conversation that began during lecture, then you've already experienced what inspired this podcast. Some of the best learning I have experienced both as a student and as a professor has happened after class. So that's exactly what I hope to capture here. Today's conversation centers around a question many community colleges are currently asking. And that is why I've entitled today's episode 1, Access Without Support, a policy conversation on student success in Gateway STEM courses. So this question that I want to explore today is, once institutions increase access to college level coursework, what responsibility do they have to provide the support students need to succeed? So, to help explore that question, I'm joined today by someone who has experienced this issue from several different perspectives herself. This is Maveen McKeon, a recent South Georgia State College graduate. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I first met Maveen as one of my chemistry SLA students. But we had that, homeschool background that, we just knew, like, you feel each other out when you're a homeschool kid. Anyways, later she actually became the final student tutor I hired during my time as STEM Center coordinator. And although I transitioned into a faculty role before she actually began working in the STEM Center, I've had the privilege of watching her grow from student to tutor. And most recently, we've even had the opportunity to present together at a professional conference on student success and structured learning assistance. So, Maveen, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Sarah.
Yay, yay. I'm excited. As you can probably tell, because I'm talking 90 miles an hour, I feel like, but that's all right. We both do that anyways.
I feel that.
So, before we dive into your experiences, I would like to provide a little context for our listeners. So, over the past decade, higher education, specifically here in Georgia, has experienced significant policy reform. Through initiatives such as Complete College Georgia, colleges and universities have been challenged to improve graduation rates and reduce unnecessary barriers to completion and help students earn degrees more efficiently. I feel like that's especially like walloping us here at the Access institution.
hmm
But one major result of these efforts was that the University System of Georgia transitioned away from the traditional standalone developmental education toward a co-requisite learning support model in math and English. So rather than requiring students to complete multiple semesters of remediation before enrolling in actual college level coursework, students now receive support while taking those gateway courses. So these reforms have increased access for thousands of students, and they've reduced many of the delays associated with traditional remediation. I think that was actually the first conference I went to back in 2017, as a brand new hire working as head of the STEM Center here. Cutting down that leaky pipeline is what they were calling it. So at the same time, many of these gateway STEM courses have continued to experience high rates of failure or withdrawal or attrition, meaning leaving. So while we've done a really good job of, uh, I guess, helping our developmental English and math as head of the STEM Center, the STEM courses, and now it's a STEM professor. STEM courses are kind of my passion, and they're still really struggling. So that's what we're talking about today. And so this raises an important policy question. If institutions have successfully reimagined support for math and English, should we begin thinking differently about support for gateway STEM courses as well? So that's the conversation I would like us to have today. So now that I have talked for a long enough time. Um, I would love for everyone to get to know you a little bit better. So tell us about yourself and your general journey through college, specifically here at South Georgia, I guess.
Okay.
So go for it.
Well, like Sarah said, I'm Avine, and I came in as a homeschool student right after high school. I started with Jen Kim, and I don't know. I did a whole bunch of stuff in high school, but I had never had chemistry before I got to South Georgia and took a bunch of other fun classes like the Englishes and stuff like that. And then recently just graduated with my associate in science.
Whoop, whoop. And you ended up having the worst professor ever for biology, I heard.
Yes, totally, Sarah. The worst.
So that's kind of become a running joke. I feel like I don't know whether to be flattered or offended that like that's the running joke about everything. They're like, "Oh yeah, the biology professor is the worst," and they're talking about me.
We love
So
just poking fun for
yeah.
fun.
I think I'm a pretty good sport about that. So
Oh, you are. You are.
so you started as a dual enrollment kid, right?
Yes.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Me too. But when you first got to South Georgia, because I think you started your DE journey across the street, right, at Coastal
Correct.
Pines. Okay.
Yes.
So, when you first got to college, even as a DE student, what was the first math you took?
I took a fundamentals in math and then I did end up taking college algebra.
Okay. And then when you got to South Georgia, what was the first math you took?
Pre-calculus.
Pre-cal. Okay. And you ultimately ended up taking calculus, right?
Yes. And then I'll be
And
taking Calc 2 in the fall.
Cal 2 in the fall. Excellent, excellent. Um, so you mentioned Gen Chem, and that's kind of like how what I want to focus this conversation around today.
Hmm.
Because yeah, people study it or struggle a little bit in biology, but not like they do chemistry.
For sure.
So, and I think having done chemistry supplemental learning in as I was head of the STEM Center for the past decade, I've seen a lot of the issue be directly linked to kind of like what math they were in. So when
Mm.
you started Gen Chem 1, what math had you either were you in or had you just completed?
I had just completed college algebra, but I think I was also in pre-calculus at the same
Okay.
time.
Okay. Great. Um, so looking back now, do you think there was a difference? So I know here at South Georgia, I don't know if you know this or not, but um we say that as long as you are in college algebra, you are more than welcome to register for Gen Chem 1. And that includes, oddly enough to me, that includes college algebra with the support class.
Hmm,
Um, so that has had some funkiness to me that I've observed. But um, anyways, regardless of that, I just wanted to put that out as a little bit of context. So you said you had finished college algebra and you were in pre-cal.
correct.
Um, so had you ever had chemistry in high school? Let me start by asking that.
No, I had not. That was the one class I was like, I don't need it. And then I got to college. I was like, just kidding. I do.
I wish I could say that that was a unique story, but unfortunately, that is almost the case with every single STEM student I encounter.
For sure.
Alas. So, saying that, so obviously, because you were in pre-cal, you were completely qualified to enroll in Gen Chem. So, do you think there was a difference between being academically eligible to enroll in Gen Chem and actually being prepared for what the course required?
Oh, 100%. There's a complete difference because you can come in because, oh, you have taken these classes, but can you apply those rules to another class? Not
Mm,
necessarily. And being
mm,
prepared for me, especially since I had never taken chemistry before, I
mm,
felt very unprepared, but also I didn't realize that it's going to be a lot more work than I expected too.
mm. So maybe it's not even being underprepared academically, but or like content wise, you said maybe it's also about being underprepared expectationally, if that's a word.
For sure.
Cool. All right. So, um, yeah, so that's a really important distinction of like, sure, you're more than eligible to enroll and but can you actually do the class? So students can meet every institutional requirement for enrollment and still discover that college level STEM courses demand ways of thinking, studying, problem solving that feel very different from anything they've experienced before. So, I guess what surprised you most about the transition from high school science or even high school studies to college level STEM work as a STEM major?
There was definitely a big shift between, even though as a homeschool student, we had pretty rigorous classes for the STEM
Yeah.
stuff, but there's just so much more content. You're flying
Mm,
so fast through this, just the stuff and
mm,
all the chapters. They were doing a lot, and it just is a lot more work than most people expect. And definitely, I expected to work hard, but not as hard as I had to, especially since I had no background in chemistry coming into it.
mm. Do you think that's something unique to just chemistry or even just to South Georgia, or do you think that that's kind of the experience among all classes or all STEM classes or all classes at South Georgia or just all STEM classes in general? Or like, what do you think is, I guess, yeah, connect all those dots for me.
Okay, I think definitely all STEM classes, most like 95%, unless they're like the intro to, I guess, chemistry, but like the main ones, um,
Okay.
most
So,
people are not expecting to do all the work that has to be done for it.
okay. And this you don't so you've been across the street at Coastal Pines, you were here, you're currently at Georgia Southern this semester, right? Working
Hmm.
on OChem too.
Yes.
um And so, do you think that's something that's limited to here at South Georgia, or do you think that's kind of across the board? Or um, I'm just curious what your
Hmm.
thoughts are on that.
I definitely think that it's more so we see it in South Georgia just
Okay.
because of the people that we're around. And the
Okay.
expectation is very different. And a lot of people also, it's just a big deal for anybody to walk inside a college, especially right
Okay.
where we live in,
Yeah.
the country farming community. It's
Hmm.
not, most people are not expecting what we offer.
Okay.
And also just the work they have to put into it just because they're so used to other stuff along the agricultural side or even teaching and stuff like that is just slightly different than some of these STEM classes that we're offering.
Okay. So you think it's more of a delineation between like STEM and other and more than like even university versus college thing, maybe?
Oh, well, even I think probably with the university, like the 2-year institution versus the more bigger universities, there's probably a slight difference as well.
Okay. Because I will probably because we have, like you were saying, different clientele, maybe. Okay, that's
Correct.
fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. Because I think that you come to South Georgia for a very specific reason, like
Correct.
either because I think I would say most of the people probably come here either because they can't afford to go somewhere else or because they're not prepared to go somewhere else, either maturity or even just like mentally, oh, I don't want to. So,
It's a great, I mean, the 2-year institution thing is really helpful to like be a jumping board to bigger colleges or even just getting your associates. It's definitely, but I feel like it is being at Georgia Southern versus South Georgia is there's a difference for sure in the clientele and also just a difference in the expectation of what you're going into.
okay, that's fair. Do you think that the rigor is any different?
No,
Okay, okay, that's good to hear.
I,
Yay.
I I think we're doing actually pretty good with the rigor.
Okay, fantastic. So the rigor is no different, but the
No,
expectation of the rigor is different. Okay,
a hundred
fantastic.
percent, yes.
Great. Okay, awesome. Okay, so I love that you mentioned like student expectations. Because I mean, you've been around me long enough that I kind of fangirl about Vincent Tinto
Mhm.
and his theory of student departure. And so Tinto, he argues that admitting students to college is only part of the responsibility that institutions have. He said that equally important is providing the academic and social support, and then also like the career guidance. that students need to persist once they arrive. And so I know that, again, because you've gone to conferences with me and we've been friends for what, 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah.
Um, I like to refer to this as content calling and connection.
Yes.
So I feel like this idea becomes really interesting when we think about all of that in terms of gateway STEM courses. So eventually, obviously, your role changed from just chemistry student to chemistry tutor. So you weren't just taking these courses anymore, you were helping other students succeed in these courses. So can you talk a little bit about what you got out of the structured learning assistance I guess, in terms of content calling and connection, and then what you saw as a tutor when you became a tutor in terms of helping other students? So I know that's kind of like a two in one.
Yeah, I definitely loved the structured learning that we did that I went through. That was super helpful just because you're doing a lot of repetitions, you're getting to know people at the same time, you get to have friends, you get to know the person who's leading it as well, and you get to just know who they are, what they do. And that was super cool. And I definitely really appreciated the fact that we went step by step through things. It
Mm,
wasn't just okay, well, here's a problem you do on your own. It was, let's go work through this, and here's and why. Why are we doing this?
mm,
What's the point?
mm.
And I know for a fact that you had to endure all of my why questions, and graciously answered all of them. But you also like brought things from different areas of STEM
Mm,
into the chemistry. And it wasn't just like, oh, chemistry is a standalone thing. It's no, it is interconnected with everything. And so
mm.
no matter if you're becoming a doctor or you're going to be in a lab somewhere, you can know where things are coming from. And that was super helpful for me.
Nice.
And then as a tutor, I think a one-on-one tutor, it was very different because
Mm,
I can regurgitate and explain the information to people,
mhm.
but they didn't have the interaction with the peers and with other people at the
Okay.
same time. So it was a lot of me and the person, and that's fine if they're really willing to engage with the material. But if they're
Mhm,
more unmotivated to engage with it, they're going to have a harder time just a one-on-one tutoring. And I found that it was so much better, and there's a lot more camaraderie with
mhm.
people when they did it together. And then after class, they could talk to each other and talk about going to SI, SLA, stuff like that. And that was super fun to see. And there's a definite disconnect when you're just doing one-on-one tutoring, even though it is incredibly helpful to just have an extra person to be able to answer questions if possible.
Fantastic, fantastic answer. Did I show you? So last semester, I was asked to create a TikTok kind of like explaining what SLA
Yes,
was.
it was
And
phenomenal. I loved it.
it still cracks me up because I think my favorite quotes from that TikTok were why do you enjoy coming, or how is SLA different than going to tutoring or even going to class? And the response was, because you assume we're stupid. And I knew they meant I started, at ground zero.
Exactly. Yeah,
But and then I was like, oh, okay, well, besides the content, what do you get out of it? We can all struggle together.
exactly.
Okay, that's fair. So um if I actually throw this up on YouTube, I'll have to make sure I link that
There you go.
to a YouTube short. So because you assume we're stupid.
Well, I mean, you definitely give us the steps, and you're not assuming that everybody is on the same page. You're definitely
Mhm.
assuming people are coming from different backgrounds, and that's what makes it helpful. Is that
Okay.
we nobody has to feel bad that they're at a different,
Mm.
I guess, jumping point than some other,
Yeah.
students, because there were students that had gone through chemistry already, but we all started
Mhm.
at the same point with you.
Mm.
And that was
Okay.
really helpful.
Nice. Nice. So I think you've already kind of hit on this a little. This brings me to my next question.
Okay.
What were some of the most common challenges, I guess, that you saw from students, either your peers when you were a student in SLA with me,
Hmm.
structured learning assistance, I don't if we haven't mentioned that yet, versus what were some other struggles that students came to you with when you were a tutor?
I guess for me, and with when I was in the class as well as just with tutoring and stuff, it was definitely people had a lot of expectation issues with just not knowing they had to do that much work. Like they were expecting to just slide in and enjoy
Mm.
it. And I mean, yeah, you could, but you're not going to pass the class. And so there's a lot of like, you need to do a lot more work and a lot more
Okay.
taking initiative and
Mm.
wanting to be there, not just sit
Mm.
in the back of class, be on your phone. Like it was very, you got to pay attention. You got to go to tutoring. You got to do a lot more. So that was for sure both sides.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that. I also noticed just like there were people weren't struggling with actually being able to do the work when I did it with them as tutoring. It was
Mm.
the taking initiative and doing it after
Mm.
and
Okay.
just the pounding of it. Cause like for us, it's a lot of math and Gen Chem 1 and 2, and you just have to do it over and
Yeah.
over and over. And the
Yeah.
wording sometimes can trip you up. And so it's a lot of
Yeah.
what does this mean? And so I can
Mm.
explain it once. And these people weren't
Mm.
stupid. They just
Yeah.
weren't motivated. And if you're not motivated to do anything, then you're not going to make the grades that you think. But also, their expectation was different because high school was so much easier.
Mm.
And showing up to class in high school did the work, not doing the work on the weekends and doing the work when you're done with your job and whatever else you got to do. But a lot of people also
Mm.
have a lot more commitments because they expect it to be less.
I'm actually going to take a mini departure from my questions that I actually wrote because I think I want to ask a different question.
Okay.
So I know that you said it's that they weren't willing to engage with the material as much, and I'm curious because I I know what my perception from my experience has been, but would you say that it's that they don't necessarily want to engage with the material or aren't willing to engage with the material, or do you think it's they didn't know that they had to engage
Mm.
with the material as much?
It's definitely they didn't know. It's
Okay.
not necessarily, sometimes it is a want and a they just won't, but a lot of it was they weren't prepared and they didn't know that that had to be done. And so if you
Yeah.
don't know, I mean, you're going to be going to the in the dark and it's not, I mean, that's not fair.
Hmm.
So I definitely think it was a lot of, well, a lot of them, their jaw dropped when I was like, yeah, you're going to be doing this on the weekends. You're going to be doing this, like
Hmm.
living, breathing this stuff. Like this is not just a,
Hmm.
you're, when you say get it into your soul, you really do mean that. Like
Yeah.
it's a not just a okay, this is something I'll never use again, or a lit class
Hmm.
that I'm not going to really enjoy or want to use again. It's
Hmm.
actually this is the foundation for all of the stuff you're to learn. Like
Yeah.
biology
Yeah.
1 and Gen Chem 1 and 2 are like foundational classes for
Mm.
so many degrees.
Yeah. I that was exactly my perception as well. I love that you said you're like everybody's jaw drops. Like because I think that it was I think you and I made a really good team because I would tell them you're going to be doing this after class. You're going to be doing this on the weekend. The expectation is get it in your soul. I love that you quoted me on that as well. Um, but then I think, like coming from a professor, I think a lot of times historically teachers have had a tendency to overhype for
Mm,
especially like in high school for the students who don't care. So then like the smart kids, or even just the kids who care, they're like, oh yeah, that doesn't apply to me.
mm,
But I don't think I overhype. And so
no.
I think that I was giving the expectation for like the smartest of the most dedicated, and people didn't necessarily believe that. So I was really glad that to have you, and you're like, no, she is telling the truth. She is understating, if anything.
Literally. I mean, lots of people came after the first test crying because they're like, I didn't know it was that hard. I'm like, I tried telling you, it's not going to be just a walk in the park. It's actually, let's do some work.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to exactly what you said is that it's not necessarily like because you said it's definitely not a rigor problem because our rigor is right up there with Georgia Southern, UGA, Georgia Tech
Oh,
in a
yeah.
lot of ways. And but I think it's like you said, it's kind of a clientele issue because we're an access institution. And so I think
Mhm.
the pre-perception is, oh, it's just South Georgia, so it's not going to be as hard. I'm like, no, we are we're even though we're an access institution, you might start at different places, but I have to get you to the same place, you know, as
Exactly.
a UGA chemistry grad. I have that responsibility of getting you there by the time you leave. So whereas
Yep.
a UGA, Gen Chem 1 student might have to travel this far, South Georgia Gen Chem 1 student might have to travel this far to get
Exactly.
to that same place. So, but yeah, so I'm glad that you brought up like early on that it's probably a clientele. Like I hate to use those words, but like it's a a student pre-perception issue and just
Mhm.
the perception of the institution. But we're still part of the university system. We are still SAC COC accredited. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Because I mean,
All
if you're
right.
going to take this class and use it in a like a bigger college, it's the
Yeah.
same thing. It's the same level.
Yeah.
It's going to need the
Yeah.
same information.
Absolutely. Wow, man. Okay. That I've gee whiz, so much good stuff. I knew we weren't going to keep this to 6 minutes or even, 20 minutes. It was so much good stuff to talk about. All right. So let's see. Moving on, because I know we could talk forever.
We really
Um,
good.
so we have answered a lot of. Okay, here's another one that I do want you to answer, but that I think you've already kind of answered.
Okay.
Um, did students generally seek help early in the semester, or did they wait until they were already struggling? And I know from what you've already told me when we talked earlier, but was this different class to class, and what made that difference?
hmm Yeah. So most people, I think, waited till after like the first test. I
Mm,
know that mostly typical for us, you get the person who's doing the SLA is introduced day one, even before the
mhm,
teacher. Sometimes it's kind of funny
mhm.
because the teacher's
Yeah.
like, "Hey, this is actually a problem," but we're just like, "Oh, it's the first day, yay!"
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people come into asking for help at least after the first test. Sometimes it's even a little bit later, but generally it's after the first one or
Mhm.
after the first week or so when they're like, I don't understand this at all.
I'm
But
drowning.
definitely, yeah, literally. But definitely there's been also people, different classes have had different turnouts of people coming to
Mm,
SLA for sure. This last one that we saw, there was a kid who I had was in my class at one point, but failed the class, so he had to wait a whole year. And so he for sure definitely was like telling horror stories of, hey, if you don't do your work, you're gonna fail this. And I just like floated and didn't do well. And the second time he took it, he was way more dedicated, encouraged
mhm,
so many more people to come to
mhm,
SLA and really wanted other people to come join in because he's like, look,
mhm,
I've been in your shoes and I don't want this to happen to you. And
mm,
so there's for with my class when I took it, there were nobody had taken it a second time. Like everybody
mhm,
was just first timers. But
mm,
there's been some that have come back and for sure
mm,
encouraged a lot more and having a student
mhm,
inside saying, hey, this is hard, but it's okay to ask for help
mm.
is so much better than almost anybody else at this point. It's definitely peer to peer. I don't know. We just listen better.
Fair, fair. That's like a whole like subsection in my dissertation actually is like students listen better to each other than they do the professors. Why is this? We don't know, but it's something that happens.
I mean, we're definitely not smarter than the professors, but we just don't ask me why. I don't know.
So, next question is if you had to identify one recurring pattern among STEM students who did come to tutoring, what would it be?
Mm, hmm. I probably, like I said, the expecting of the workload definitely there was a
Okay.
whole bunch of that, and also just
Yeah.
I think drilling it that
Ooh,
that
yeah.
just constant having to do this over and over and not just taking one practice test, not just doing the packet we do, but just
Hmm.
a lot of more repetitions just didn't happen. Even if you had a
Hmm.
really good foundation in math, like I had a
Hmm.
great foundation, and a lot of it's simple stuff. It's not simple math, but it's
Mm.
understandable. But the wording just gets so bogged down. You're learning a
Yeah.
new language when you go to chemistry. Like
Yeah.
it's a lot more. So I think just not knowing that they have to do more,
Hmm.
and also just it's a hard class.
I know that we've kind of like centered this discussion around Gen Chem 1,
Hmm
but um, I just went back and took physics as well, and I noticed that same issue in physics. I guess a couple of years before I left the head tutor position,
hmm
because they were like, "Oh, you need to be able to, tutor your for our new mechanical engineering program. How comfortable are you with this?" And so I went back and took that. So I noticed it there, and then
hmm
I've especially noticed it as a professor that, like you said, students just expect, particularly like people who have historically been good students and are the smart kids and have performed well academically, they just expect to show up, be in class, and like absorb the information and then be able to spit it back out on the test. But like you said, that's not enough. And I don't think that I think that's not limited to just chemistry. Like I said, I
Oh
think
no.
it goes in almost any STEM class you're going to be in, like physics and like my biology class, because I think, like you said, after test one, students kind of learn that, oh, what I have learned for the past 14 years in P12 isn't going to cut it anymore. Um, I actually have to
Yeah.
drill, 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 drill.
I
And
feel like
yeah.
underneath this, like a STEM center, it should have something to say like, this is where you apply your knowledge, not where you regurgitate it. Because a lot of classes you absorb and then you regurgitate it how you learned it.
Mm,
STEM classes, especially with chemistry, you learn it one way and learn the rules and then go
hmm.
have to apply it to something you've never seen before. And that's the whole point of science, is to learn new
Yeah.
things, which is so cool.
Yeah.
But nobody expects that. They're like, "Oh, I can just this is the problem, this will be on the test." No, no, honey, it's going to be
Right.
different.
Right. Are you taking physics in the fall? Is that one that you're
Yes.
doing? So you know how much I love Dr. Abdallah.
Yes.
But he is notorious for that because he'll give you stuff that you haven't seen on purpose because he's like,
Uh-huh.
oh, I just wanted to see if you could apply it. I'm like, Dr. Abdallah. So, but I
Yeah,
mean, obviously he works with you and it doesn't penalize your
exactly.
final grade, but
No,
it makes you panic a little bit in the moment.
exactly.
All right. So, listening to your experiences and, talking about my own, obviously, you point blank said that the students, most STEM students, are highly capable and most of them were motivated. They just still weren't succeeding. Yeah. So the challenge wasn't necessarily intelligence. Often it was preparation or confidence, study strategies, or simply not engaging with the support until it was almost too late.
Exactly.
So now let's take that shift now that we've kind of took the first little bit to kind of like summarize what we're going to talk about, and then we've taken this last chunk to talk about the problem. um so now let's shift into thinking about possible solutions, and that's actually what you and I and Michaela presented on at Gira this past year. So if you were sitting around the table with newly named official full-time permanent president, we're so proud of him, Mr. Dr. Tanner. For those of you watching, our current president just got named president. They officially took interim off of his title, and we are so proud of him because he's been interim for far too long, and we are just tickled to death. So, anyways, with President Mr. Dr. Tanner, or Vice President Miss Sarah Selby. Um, so if we were sitting around the table with them, um, there are several possible policy directions that we could go to make this better for us
Hmm.
at here specifically at South Georgia State College. So I think our first option would just be to maintain exactly what we're doing. So option one, maintain the status quo, maintain the current approach. So, and that approach is students can just access tutoring or structured learning assistance if they choose, but participation is completely voluntary. So, what do you see as the strengths and weaknesses of that model?
Mm. I think the strengths are that you can have a more flexible schedule and you don't
Hmm,
feel like the class is demanding so much from you. I
hmm,
think the weaknesses is just that you're not necessarily, unless you're really like, either you've heard horror stories or you just go getter or you just want help or even you're struggling. I feel like
hmm.
we just don't, tutoring and getting help from people is not necessarily the mindset of people when they go into
Yeah,
college. Most of the time, people are like,
absolutely.
well, if I got through high school, I can get through college. And it's like,
Mm,
well, some people can. Some people are just heck, like super, super smart. And
mm.
I don't understand those people. But a lot of us,
Same.
a lot of us are either average or, tending toward being able to pick some things up quicker than others, but we still
Sure.
need a lot more help.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we don't have it, if it's just we can do it when if we want to, most
Mhm.
people are not gonna build in the time, or it's gonna be a struggle later
Mm,
when they find out they need to.
mm, mm.
But having it than not having it, is we need some sort of help.
Yeah.
So we can't take that away.
Yeah, yeah. So I would definitely agree with you. So I think a strength is that it is voluntary. And so you can go when, how much, how often, to whomever you want to go to. I think that's a super strong strength of it. The fact that we have it is a huge strength. I think that that's one of the things that we've done especially well. Not to toot my own horn, but it's not me now, it's out of my hands. But I think that's one thing we, the campus, have done especially well is making sure we have
Hmm.
always had STEM tutors. Because I know there's obviously more than me who was involved in that, but I like our professors and um, even HR, especially in the past few years, shout out to those ladies, mercy. But making sure that we have the tutors we need, I think that was a really strong model that it existed and that you could use it as you needed. But I
Hmm.
also agree with you that it was voluntary and it wasn't an expectation, I think, of anybody. I don't think anybody comes to college, even, at a access institution, even at just South Georgia. I don't think anybody, for the most part, comes with the expectation of the tutoring center is going to be in my college plan. I
Hmm.
that's students don't come to college with that mindset. So I think that's probably, like you said, the biggest drawback. Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree. All right, so then our second option um, would be increasing the prerequisites before students enroll in the Gateway STEM courses. So some might argue that students should complete additional maths before beginning such courses as Gen Chem 1. And I know this is actually an approach that Valdosta State takes. They actually have a pre-chem um, for some of their students. Um, so what do you think would be the advantages and disadvantages of that approach?
I think the advantages would definitely help with people who just need to see it multiple times or need to
Mm,
see just the way
yeah.
that things are structured and taught and just
Mm,
so it's not so scary. I think that would help,
ooh,
but
that's
also
good.
um I think sometimes too like the SLA also helps that at the same time. So
Okay.
there's that in hand. But definitely having more, how do we do this? A little pre-chem type class that's not super overwhelming, but gives people a
Mm,
foundation, I think would
mm,
really help. But the drawback would be people may or may not want to do that because they want to be able to get through college faster. Like everything is now
right.
fast, fast. Let's see how long we can do it. We have mini masters.
Mhm.
I'm taking OChem 2 in 4 weeks. Like we're trying to condense everything
You're
as small as
insane.
possible.
You're
I
insane.
am.
I'm just gonna tell you that.
When you learn 3 to 5 chapters in like 1 week and then get tested over it,
Seriously.
it's ridiculous. But I'm just saying, like people want to get fast, like done with things because
Yeah, absolutely.
people. I mean, most college is not free for everybody. I mean, I know there's
Mhm,
people get grants and people get money and stuff like that, which is really helpful, and I'm so glad there
mhm,
is that help. But college sometimes is like the part where people are struggling financially, so they want to get through it as fast
mm,
as possible and then be able to
mm.
pay their debt off. So having another class might make people not want to take that as much because it's
Yeah.
another class you have to pay for and it's another thing, but also it'd be really helpful. So,
Girl, I
you
think
know,
you hit the nail right on the head with that one. Like, yeah, I definitely agree that like the people who have historically done the best in Gen Chem 1 and then Gen Chem 2 and subsequent whatevers have been my people who have finished pre-cal and honestly who are in Cal 1 or have finished Cal 1. And I
mhm,
don't know if that's necessarily because they have had more math practice, or correlation is not necessarily causation. And so I don't know if that's just like weeding them out or if it's actually giving them the skills. Um, it can't be hurting though. So like definitely.
no, it's definitely both, but also if you make it through calculus, there's a even pre-cal, even college algebra sometimes there's just like a confidence of like, hey, I can do this. Like
Yeah.
I made it through a hard class that people go, I don't want to take.
Yeah.
So I mean, for me, especially after making it through some of these harder maths, I'm like, hey, if I can do that, I can do a lot of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yes. I have no words, but yes. Great. Great. So yeah, I wholeheartedly agree that there is something to be said for at least being in pre-cal,
Hmm.
because at least for us, that is the math we require for the degree. Well, now I'll caveat that by saying the university system has also just come up with the impacts math. Um, you know my sentiments on a lot of that, so we're not going to get into that because I know your sentiments on it as well.
Exactly.
Um, but anyways, so traditionally, um, the math that we require, at least before impacts, was pre-cal. And so um, I think there's something to be said for you shouldn't be in your first like math heavy STEM course until you're at least in um the the first like STEM math
Hmm.
that is required of you. So I think there's something to be said for that, and maybe like making sure you're out of all remedial classes or making sure you're through college algebra. I think there's definitely an argument to be had there, because can you fathom, like, you just, I know in our kind of like our pre-chat, you were like, how is that possible? You have to do logarithms and everything. Like,
Yeah, you can't just make it through with
yeah,
not knowing that. And I mean,
yeah.
also just the calculator skills. Like, I know that we're allowed to use calculator stuff, but
Mhm.
how I didn't learn half the stuff. You taught me so much because I'm like, I don't know, you know? And it's just if you were confident and you knew that stuff
Mm,
already, you
mhm,
wouldn't have to be sitting there for 25 minutes trying to figure out what you were supposed to do on your calculator. You would actually get through the
mhm,
test because a lot of people don't finish the test in Gen Chem 1 and 2. At least that's what I noticed. I
mhm.
didn't have that problem because I was taught how to be proficient in the with the
Yeah,
calculator and what to look
yeah.
for. But a lot of people, they're just struggling really hard. Even the people that have extended time still didn't
Mhm,
finish. And I was somewhat floored by that just because
mhm.
but I mean, I know everybody has their own struggles, so no judgment, but it's just a lot. And
Yeah.
knowing, being confident with your calculator and with the tools that you already should know
Mhm.
is like a big deal for sure.
Yeah, I that's huge. I think I know that it might could be perceived as creating another barrier, but I love the way that you put it. It's not necessarily another barrier. It's just another opportunity to become proficient with the tools that you will be using in the course before you're actually expected to use them. I can't
Hmm.
imagine having to learn the alphabet, learn phonics, and read in the same year. And I feel like Gen Chem 1 is a lot like that.
For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Um, so the yeah, so that I think that's a very positive thing. And then I'll also echo exactly what you said about we typically offer Gen Chem 1 and 2 as um our science sequence, our traditional area D, for lack of a better way to talk about it. Um, in and it's a so chemistry, if you're pursuing a biology degree or a chemistry degree, and sometimes even in an allied health degree, if you are trying to get a 2-year degree in 2 years, chemistry is a 4 course sequence, and so you cannot come in and do 5 semesters worth of work in 4 semesters. And so if we did offer something like pre-chemistry, or even if we mandated, because if you had to come in and do math modeling with support, college algebra with support, and then pre-cal before we let you in, there's no way that you could even contemplate doing 4 semesters of chemistry in two
No,
years. It's
yeah,
just not going to happen. And like you said, that defeats a lot of the reason why people are coming to college to start with, especially
correct.
here.
That's,
So
yeah, for sure.
as good as the argument, the pro was in this second situation, I think that it's such a hard con that, yeah.
We'll definitely see a huge decrease in the attendance and stuff if we have more barriers like that, even though they're not necessarily bad. It's
Mm.
just, it's going to be a lot more people are going to say, no, I'd rather just go work. And that's
Oof.
going to be hard because the whole
It's
point
not
is
what we
educating
need.
people. No, we need
Yeah.
more educated people. And the
Yes,
point,
absolutely.
yeah,
Okay, well then I think that brings us to the third possible situation, which would be maintaining our current access policies while changing how the academic support is presented. So imagine if structured learning assistance sessions appeared on student schedules from the very
Woo-hoo!
beginning, not because you were failing or because, oh no, I have to go to tutoring, but that's just because, oh, that's just how STEM courses are designed. How do you think students would respond to that?
Oh, I think people will love it, to be honest, because it's built in. There's no, I need to move my schedule around.
Mhm.
I mean, it's free time to hang out with your friends and get to know people, like, and then get more help. And I don't think it'd be scary, and I don't think it'd be as defeating, because sometimes I feel like people feel defeated when they ask for
Ooh.
help. And so if
Ooh.
we had it in there, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
guess what? This is just how this works. Guess what? We
Mm-hmm.
all struggle. We all have stuff. And especially when teachers tell you, like, hey, I struggled through this and it's okay because I made it here. And
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to, yes, you want to get an A in this class if possible, but also even if you get a B, C, but you still tried, you still did it, and it's not going to be as scary. And so having
Mm-hmm.
that, I think just an expectation of, guess what? These are hard classes and these people need some more help. That's just going to be, it brings down the barrier of, oh, I don't want to go. I don't want to be seen as lesser because I'm asking for help.
Mm-hmm. I love that you even use that word because I hadn't thought about it in, I guess, that way of
Mm,
it brings down a barrier, and that's our whole mantra as access institutions is remove the barriers, right? And so I love the fact that you related it back to that because yeah, it removes the barrier of feeling like you've failed or feeling
mm,
like you don't belong or
yeah,
yeah, oh that's so good. Oh, that's so good. Um mercy, that's wonderful. So pros were it would remove the barriers.
exactly.
um man, and then also something I've seen, and I don't know if you necessarily saw this as a tutor, but you probably heard it talked about just with your fellow students. I know that a lot of reasons students don't come to SLA the way we've set it up is because they're like, oh well, I gave my boss my
Hmm.
schedule before the semester began, and he scheduled me for the next 5 months based on that schedule. I have no wiggle room in my schedule now. I want to come, but I cannot. How many, what percentage of our students do you think have at least a part-time job, if not full-time jobs, would you
Oh,
say?
a lot. Like there's,
Yeah.
it's really most, I mean, I know that we have about a third dual enrollment, a third
Mhm.
traditional, and a third non-traditional. And I
Yeah.
think for sure 2/3 of those people have jobs because even traditional
Yeah.
students, 18 to 22, those kids all have part-time jobs. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I mean, from where we come from, money
Yep.
is tight. And
Yeah.
so we have to help support us or our families or just
Yeah.
be able to get to half of us are driving 40 minutes to get to college. And
Yeah.
so it's gas money's not cheap. It's
Mm.
$50 to fill up your tank now, which is insane. So I feel like almost everybody, even dual enrollment kids, are juggling so much.
Mhm.
Sports.
Mhm.
I mean, half the time people don't. If we didn't, if we had it built in, then
Mhm.
of course we'd have people could move their work schedules. Or hey, I can't do 5 sports this semester. Because I'm going to this and this is important. And so if
Mhm.
education is important, we can make room. But if we didn't know, it just becomes frustrating.
Yeah, it would be a pre-established expectation. Yeah,
Yes.
fantastic. Um, wow, that was, I'm not going to add anything to that because that was perfectly well said.
Thank you.
Um, can you think of any cons to that of putting it on
Hmm.
the schedule?
Honestly, no, because if if it's on there, I mean, we all know you got to go to lab because lab is
Yeah.
on the schedule. If you miss lab, then I mean, yeah, you won't get the grades you want, but you at least knew it was there. And so then it's
Mm,
on you as the student. And if we can provide everything as the college to set you up for success, because most of the time people are taking classes here and then going to a bigger university. If they have an expectation of here's what we're doing,
mm,
then they're so much better prepared to go to a
yeah.
bigger university and
Mm,
also just prepared in life. I mean,
mm, that's
knowing
good.
how to work with people and understand how things go and
Hmm.
class schedules and especially time management. I know that we talked a lot
Mm,
about this in SLA and all that stuff. Like it's a big thing to know when
Yeah.
to do things and how fast to do them. And I feel
Mm,
like if we have a lot more, here's how to understand time management and how we want to help you gradually get into
mm,
that spot will help you
mhm.
in the rest of your life.
That's yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, I love that you shared that because SLA I know that I've had a lot of conversations with my former supervisors because they're like, I don't understand why you're putting all of this emphasis on this type of,
Hmm.
tutoring or intervention. And I was like, because it's not just about the content. And again, that's exactly what my dissertation is on. Um, and I love that you said that because I love that even without prompting, you're like, because SLA is about so much more than just doing the chemistry.
Hmm.
It's helping you be a better student, and
Yeah,
helping you succeed further on in life. Um, so when I've brought this up to like talking, just kind of talking this through with our chair, with our dean, with our new associate provost, um, I think what their primary concern has been, like the only con they can see, or the biggest con they can see, because honestly, I couldn't see any other cons either, would be if we block it out on the schedule, then it would be more difficult for students to get the courses they need because a lot of times your courses are going to overlap because we are so small. And so there might only be one session of this offered and one session of that offered. And so right now we've got them, blocked around each other. But if we add one more thing, it's going to make it just that much more difficult for students to get the things that they need in the right amount of time, which goes back to your, you want to do it as fast as you can, basically,
yeah.
especially here. But my answer to that was, but when did we have SLA? What time? How did I plan it?
We did it the opposite day of the lab time. So it
Yeah.
was pretty intuitive that, oh, you're gonna block out this time on this day. And then if you do it on the other time, on the day that you have class, then I
Mm-hmm.
don't I don't know a lot of people that have back-to-back classes because South Georgia State
Mm-hmm.
does a really good job of not making it. So you have tons of classes back to back. I know bigger universities you may have like 15 minutes in between your class, but for
Mm-hmm.
us, when you're done with class, you have like 2 hours
That's fair.
until the next one, or at least an hour where you
Mm-hmm.
could potentially have more stuff. But if it's intuitive and makes sense and it's not weird, then people are going to really
Yeah.
want to go to it.
Yeah. And I feel like, especially, so we operate on a 4-day schedule for
Hmm.
almost without exception. And so you're either Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. And so typically when you have a STEM class, you're going to have Monday, Wednesday lecture, and then one of those days will be blocked for the lab.
Hmm.
But then you just have, like you were saying, that equivalent spot with literally nothing else there. And I don't know if it's just serendipity or what, but um, I don't think I've ever had, the only time I've ever had somebody like not be able to come to SLA for school related scheduling reasons is because they've had hybrid theater. So
Hmm.
the only course that gets in the way historically has been a hybrid theater class, but we can like we
You can shift your
offered.
schedule around.
Yeah, there's you don't have to take theater. The only reason I've traditionally put people as an advisor have traditionally put people in that hybrid theater class that only meets that one day a week is because, oh, look, you've got an empty slot in your schedule. They could have taken it a different semester, or they could have taken it online, or they could have taken it at a different time slot because she offers two different courses at two different
Hmm.
times. And so, in my whole decade of being here, I've never known that to be an issue because typically that chunk just sits empty, which is why we traditionally hold SLA during that time. And so, even though I think it could be a barrier. It could be a con. I think, like you were saying, with the way South Georgia schedules are set up, it's not.
Yeah.
Um, Anyways, so obviously I know I kind of get the vibe of which which of these um you know options you like best. I think I might have the same option preference. So all right. So that's really the heart of today's discussion. So, community colleges have always been committed to access, but perhaps the question today isn't whether students should have access. Perhaps the question is, what responsibility do institutions have once students walk through the door? So, obviously, let's now, like, I guess, finish up on the policy recommendation. Like, which of those policies are you gunning for? And I think we've already said why, but let's just hear it out of your mouth.
Definitely having the SLA structured into the schedule so that people know. And also, if you have a DE kid or dual enrollment, then their parents know what they're doing. It's not just
Ooh.
being wasted time. Or like, what are you doing at the college? Like, everybody is informed. I definitely think that would be a huge bonus and benefit to our
Mhm,
college, especially just the people that we're helping and all of the
mhm.
things that we talked about. Definitely, it would be a leg up against other junior colleges for sure.
Ooh, fantastic. Yeah, obviously I agree. And that's, I think we both knew that coming into it because that was legitimately when I took a survey, just a general feedback of just gathering some information from y'all in the past few semesters. That was consistently what I'd been hearing, and that's actually what you and I and Michaela presented at Gira was why
Mhm.
is it not on the schedule?
Exactly.
um, so yeah, I think that if we were to make at me coming from, head of student success for the Waycross campus, me coming from that background, and then also me as like the leader historically of structured learning for chemistry, from that background, and then you as a student, and then also as a tutor background, I think all of that is gunning in the same direction for let's just put it on the schedule and be done with it because I think we have almost a moral obligation, an ethical obligation to do so.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, it's the expectations of the people who come here don't necessarily align with the expectations that the institution has of our students. And
Hmm.
I think this would be a huge step in, I'm going to use your words, removing that huge barrier um, to helping them be successful. Um, so let's have one final question, and then we'll wrap up. So, if you could make one recommendation to Mr. Dr. Tanner and Miss Selby regarding Gateway STEM, what would it be?
It would for sure be having more specific expectations in
Mm,
some sort of college catalog or just like, hey, you're a new student. Here are classes that you probably will going to have to take, and here's the actual nit grit of what you're going to be doing and what
hmm
you're going to be expected to do.
hmm
Because I know that we have course descriptions, but a lot of times they're kind of vague and they don't really explain that you're going to have to do a lot more work. So I think
hmm
for sure having more just here is what the expectation is before you get into it. And so
Preemptive
that
defined expectations.
exactly. And so then
Good.
people can
Yeah.
decide this is the pathway for me or this is not the pathway. And then we're not
Mm.
going to have to find halfway through the semester and drop out.
Ooh, that's good. That's good. And I think like we've been talking about this whole time, I think putting the structured learning assistance for the whatever STEM class we're talking about, whether it be, I think chemistry should be our number one, but whether that be chemistry or even accounting or biology,
Yeah.
all of these like intro hard classes, as it were, I think that would help, like you said, preempt those expectations and communicate the appropriate ones instead. And now nobody's going to feel like a failure when they come to SLA or when they come to tutoring. And now the expectation of, oh, I have to be here. I need to kind of invest in this. Or like you, I love that you brought in our DE kids because we've had a couple of parents get upset about, well, I don't understand why you're sticking around after class. Like, why do I need to come? Like, I've been here. Like, your schedule ended. Like, why I'm sitting outside? Why do you still want to stick around?
Exactly.
So, I love that that was your succinct way of putting it. Preempt the expectations. And like we've been talking about, like I said, this would be, I think, one of the best ways and most overarching ways and biggest ways we could do that and do it immediately. And from what you and I have at least discussed, have no or at least minimal negative side effects. Like, why aren't we already doing this? So,
Exactly.
oh man, this has been wonderful. I don't even know how long we've been talking. Obviously, it's longer than 6 minutes, but
I think it's almost been an hour.
probably. I think we said it's gonna be more like 60 minutes. I was like, that's okay. It'll be my real first podcast. Um, also, for those of you listening, my I went to counseling. I started counseling a few months ago, and my counselor was like, "You have so much to offer the world. Like, you need to have a podcast." And so I've been thinking about a podcast, and then actually kind of got this assignment in one of my higher ed courses, and I was like, I get to do it. And I was like, maybe it'll be a mini podcast. And Maybeen was like, no, it's gonna be the full thing. She knows me a little too well. But Maybeen, thank you so much for letting me, oh my gosh, capture you and kidnap you for however long this has been.
I've loved every second, and I appreciate and feel honored that you just let me on here and to talk, because I feel like this is such an important like topic. And um yeah, I'm just thankful for all the stuff you've provided me as a student, and it's been great.
Thank you. So I think today's conversation highlights something obviously I've observed throughout my own career, both in student success and now in the classroom. I think the biggest issue is that students are academically eligible, but practically unprepared. So, the University System of Georgia has already demonstrated through developmental education reform that increasing access while embedding support improves student success. So, rather than recreating barriers through additional prerequisite requirements, I think what we've kind of concluded today is that institutions should build upon that philosophy by integrating structured learning assistance into gateway STEM courses. So, by scheduling structured learning assistance alongside those high risk STEM courses, colleges can normalize academic support, reduce stigma, encourage earlier engagement, and better align institutional practices with the needs of the students that we currently serve. Community colleges have never been about serving the students we wish we had. They've always been about serving the students we do have. And I believe that that's the policy question that's facing us today. Given the students we have, how do we best help them succeed? And I believe intentionality and intentionally integrating academic support into Gateway STEM courses is one answer. And honestly, I think it's a big answer. So, Maybeen, thank you again for joining me today and for sharing your experiences. That is phenomenal, by the way. And thank you everyone for listening. I'm Sarah E. Brazel, and this has been After Class Convos, where some of the best learning happens after class. Bye.
Bye.